Well, you know, first off, I just wanted to work with George. I've wanted to work with George for a long time, and this was the opportunity that presented itself. I always wanted to do a sports movie, and I was 31 when I got the part, so I was running out of time, unless it be like a darts movie or maybe a table tennis movie or something like that. And actually, it was the spirit of Joe. You know, what these boys went on to achieve is nothing short of remarkable, and they're an extraordinary group of people. But Joe's story especially, I connected with and I felt for him and I loved him immediately. I wanted to look after him. You know, he was abandoned by his dad when he was 13 years old. None of us in that boat had ever rowed before. So we were all learning a new skill. And actually the difficult thing about rowing and the unique thing about rowing is it's not about star players, it's about the team. And so sacrificing our individuality to the boat, being 8 and becoming 1 was the hardest part. You know, that's like, we learned the technical aspect, but then the spiritual aspect of rowing was I'd say was the hardest part.
Well, I like sports films. I mean, I really do. I'm a jock. I grew up playing sports. I like sports films, but I also just like the triumph over, and I also like watching how we work best when we're together. And these guys, you know, in real life, Joe Rance and these characters, they were all sort of wonderful athletes, but that doesn't mean it works. And these guys were hungry, literally, because it was the Depression. They were hungry. And they needed to do it only because they could, you know, if they could race, they could eat. And I like stories like that. Look, it's all challenging, as you can imagine, because we're working on water. So it's all challenging. But they had so much harder work than I did. You know, I give them a lot of crap, but the truth is, they just did an amazing job. You know, they went through a pretty emotional thing. It was 5 months of training to where they could get to the point where they could stroke at 46 strokes, which is what what they did in the Olympics. And these are actors who never rowed before. So they were pretty emotional about that. We were all a little choked up.
When I first heard the story, I couldn't believe I didn't already know it. And I knew it was sort of perfectly orchestrated in life to be worthy of being a movie. Getting to play the coach was kind of cool. It was a big sign that I was getting older because I wasn't in the boat. But there was a pleasure in not having to go through all the training of that. And I think they're more winning in many ways because of their sharp focus than warm, fuzzy coaches. And more than anything, I see father figures in them, father-son relationships. Every coach I've ever had has sort of been a quasi-father. There's always warmth underneath the hardest veneer. Tough dads can be massively loving. They just don't show it. Week 1 of any shoot for me was riddled with anxiety. Just sort of, you know, taking a character for a walk for the first time and hoping that you're doing the right thing by the movie.
I was a fan of the book well before I even knew this was going to be a feature. I loved the book. And if you haven't read it, read it. Or if you like listening to it on Audible, the late, great Edward Herman narrates it, and his voice was like an alto sax. Beautiful. I think it's the triumph of the human spirit. You know, a nation of underdogs, perseverance, effort, passion, will. It's got everything. I think everyone needs to see this movie. Listen, he wanted to put Washington on the global map. He worked for the Washington Post-Intelligencer, and he wanted people to take Washington seriously. I love that about him.
Well, mostly I'm just really grateful. You know, there's a lot of great books out there, a lot of great writers who never get this opportunity to see their story on a big screen. So I'm profoundly grateful for the experience, and I'm really happy with the product. I mean, I saw the film for the first time in August, and I was nervous because I didn't know if I'd like it, and I liked it right out of the gate. I'm telling this story about 9 then young men who all became old men and are now no longer with us. And so when you're writing and telling a story about people who have passed away, you feel a real obligation to get their story right and to do justice to them as individuals. So it's very gratifying to me. I mean, the response to the book's been very gratifying, and so this takes it to another level.
I love true stories, so that checked one box. And then I love the idea of these boys who really have nothing, and just they have to work together to win, basically. And I love stories like that. I mean, we stayed very close to the book. The book is fantastic. So our job really was to not mess up the book. In terms of trying to keep it contemporary, I mean, look, these are themes that they're these are the same themes that Shakespeare was writing about. So I think they still resonate. You have to row as one. And it's sort of like in the times we're in right now, it's not a bad message. I mean, I hope that they talk about how on the edge of their seat they were. With each race, as we progress through the film, each race becomes more intense, and so George and I designed it that way, and hopefully, their heart is pounding.
A bunch of boys, but they're all fantastic human beings, and they made me feel very welcomed and just at home and safe and everything. And me and Courtney, I feel like we showed up and we were like, all right, we got to bring that feminine energy, and yeah, I think it was grounding to have her with me. And but the love story, it's important. It's really beautiful to see their relationship blossom throughout the film, I think. Like, every scene is my favorite scene. I think the rowing scene is one scene that we had such a good time with. We were out in this lake, and it was 1 a.m., and there was a storm coming in, and we were trying to kind of get it in time, and we just laughed so much, and we had such a good time. And I always love an underdog story and sort of that rags to riches sort of thing where, you can start with nothing but build towards everything, and starting small, you can then make a global impact. I think that really resonated with me.
Because the stakes were so high the whole time that it was almost more than friends. We kind of all trauma bonded through this incredibly chaotic experience. They had us out there months in advance, and we had some of the best coaches in the world, Olympians around us, and we were going, solely for the first 2 months. We were just doing morning and night and workouts all day, every single day. And everybody, it's such an important, true story. I think everybody had a huge sense of obligation. The story, even if I wasn't involved with the film, I would recommend the book to anybody because it's almost can't be believed. It's so incredible. So I think the main thing I would take away from it is, for me, it's the experience with all these guys, but it's just about like what you can get done, what you can accomplish on your own. I think with nothing.
I read the book like 10 years ago, and I fell in love with it. And I remember reading it, and I ran into my living room, and my wife, who was then my girlfriend, I said, this is amazing. Like, someone has to make this into a movie. So to be a part of that is really an honor. And I love this story. And I think the thing that resonated with me is really these boys who are just like all odds stacked against them in every way of life end up going on this amazing journey and succeeding. And that's a beautiful thing to see and watch and be a part of. When Joel Edgerton's character, Albrechtsen, says, hey, I'm going to play our JV boat, my character, Tom Bull, says, no, that's crazy. But ultimately, once he does it, these guys are in it together because, they both come from a rowing background. They were both collegiate athletes. So it's that same idea of, we're in this boat together. So even though they're coaches, they're in it together. And I love that part of the movie. I love that Bulls just has to go, all right, we're clicked in now. He's amazing. I mean, George is really, he's such a beautiful director, and he's such a pro. He just knows what he wants. He's efficient, and as an actor, it just makes you feel confident. Then it allows you to do what you do and go and act because you're in amazing hands.
There's a sort of fearlessness to be able to mouth off to all these tall freaking rowers, and regardless, without fear, without repercussion. The message that resonated with me the most was that regardless of where you start in life, if you believe in yourself and you work hard, you can raise yourself up and you can persevere if you believe you can. Shooting on water is the most challenging aspect, and personally I had to keep the boat a certain distance from the rowers to my left, keep the boat a certain distance from the camera boat on my right, diagnose problems in the rowing in real time, improv commands that would improve the rowing in the boat to the characters, not to the actors, and then I had scripted lines too.
It's like a triumph of the human spirit, a film like this, and that there's something in being able to row. You're relying on 7 other guys to do the exact same thing as you at the exact same time. It's about friendship and trust and a team. It's not something I typically do. I've kind of spent most of my career playing some kind of questionable characters. It's normally quite dark and serious. And I was surprised that I was invited to come and be part of this in kind of a comedic capacity, but I really enjoyed it. I always find the acting thing the scariest. No matter how much I do it, I'm always like, I'm going to forget my lines, I'm going to forget how to do all of this stuff. That for me was the most challenging. He's very, very good at making the set feel really comfortable and safe and light, and he's fantastic.
So I'm going to share kind of a sentimental one for me, but this is like why George was such an amazing director. It was like the really subtle things that you just gain after, I think, a lifetime of working. But we were on our last day of rowing, and we just done 2 weeks of like the most high intensity rowing and the biggest pressure, and he basically just ditched us at the end of the lake. All of a sudden we turned around and we realized the entire camera crew and everyone had just gone, and we had maybe 5 minutes to row back on our own in the dead silence. You know, like, I think it was really like he didn't have to do that, but he understood that this was going to be our last moments together sitting in that boat, and we'd spent so many hours in that for so many months, and you know, it was a really, really magical moment, and none of us really knew what to say, but we all understood that this was the end, and it was special. It was really, really special. It's impossible not to have a good time around George Clooney, and I think that really helped the entire crew and the entire cast just feel at ease, because we kind of felt there was an impossible task set before us, and I think if it hadn't been for the support that they gave us and the coaching and the athletes that were there with us every day, we would have never pulled it off, I'll be honest, yeah.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and comment on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be notified when new videos are released.